What's going on? It's TJ from The Ongoing Concept, and you are listening to Breakdowns for Breakfast.
Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast. I am your host, Danger, and joining me is a fellow that cannot properly break down an album without Monster. Say hi, Monster.
Hello. Good morning.
Thank you for not asking me how I am.
I don't care.
On this episode of Breakdowns for Breakfast, we're going to be talking about the album from Dead Sara called Ain't It Tragic, released September 17th, 2021. Now, Monster, why did we want to talk about Dead Sara?
I'm assuming it's because Emily Armstrong is now the lead singer of Linkin Park, and we're still trying to ride that coattail.
More or less, yeah. No,
More or less.
So, Dead Sara has a few songs that I genuinely like. Excuse me, people, I'm a little phlegmy tonight, or this morning. Sorry, I got to keep up the illusion. Yeah,
You have destroyed the illusion.
I did. So, okay, there are a few Dead Sara songs that I like, but I can say before we decided to take on this album, I don't think I ever listened to a full Dead Sara album. Now, I know you and I listened to the wrong Dead Sara album before, just preparing for this and not remembering which one we're doing because we've got so many albums to juggle. But that's our cross to bear. That we decide to talk about music.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think I've ever listened to an album from start to finish. But before the whole Linkin Park thing, I had listened to Dead Sara a little bit. I think I had just sort of gone down that YouTube rabbit hole a couple times and come across a couple of their videos. And obviously, I think that song, The Weatherman, which is off of their first album, I think is probably their quote unquote biggest hit. But little peek behind my musical tastes, I'm not a big fan of like modern bands that have that classic rock throwback sound. There's a few exceptions. Like I really enjoyed the first couple Darkness albums. There was that big The Band revival where there was like a dozen The bands that all kind of had a little bit of a throwback sound. I didn't like any of them except the Hives. I liked the Hives, but like the Vines, the White Stripes, the Strokes, like all of that stuff just kind of missed me. And I feel like this album kind of teeters on that genre.
So I was wondering what you were talking about with the bands, but I'm glad you clarified that. And there were some of those that I did like. I did like the White Stripes, but I also came to really like Jack White outside of the White Stripes. I think he's a phenomenal musician, but I do like this sound if it's done right. And I feel like it's done right on a lot of this album, but I feel like there's a difference between a modern band doing the classic sound, which, I feel like there's a lot of that on this, but there's a lot of other sounds on this album. And that's where I think that that sound really, thrives. And I really enjoy it when they're not shooting for, 1976. It's like they're using like the 70s and like 60s, 70s and 80s as an inspiration for what they're doing. And that's what I felt like this album did. And I'm okay with that.
I will agree with you. I think it starts off a little bit more derivative. And as the songs go on, they sort of settle into their own sound.
Right.
Because when I first put this on, I did listen to a little bit of their first album because we did talk about possibly doing that one instead.
Right.
But this is the last album they put out before Emily joined Linkin Park. So I think that's, it's interesting to do this one because if I remember correctly, that first album was very raunchy 70s, like garage rock more than anything else.
Yes.
Where this album incorporates a lot of that. But it definitely, like, it's not like Greta Van Fleet, where it's obvious what they're knocking.
Right.
This is a little bit more, like you said, taking those bands as an inspiration. The problem is there are a couple songs on here where I think the inspiration speaks louder than Dead Sara. Like I hear the band they're striving for above them. And the bad part is I felt that the most on like the first couple songs. So every time I would start this album over, I was always like, I guess I just got to power through these first couple songs because there's a lot of stuff I do like, specifically sort of in the middle of the album. But I don't know. Like I'm kind of all over the place on this one because there's parts I really, really like and then parts that just don't quite click for me.
I know exactly what you mean. So I kind of had the same thing. And now the first time I listened to this album, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but the more I listened to it, the more it grew on me. And I had
it grows on you for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I had a weird thing with it where I found that, you know, I did get tired of hearing it at a certain point in the album, but it's like they changed the sound enough later in the album to where I was okay with being tired, if that makes sense. You know, it was like I was still in it, but I didn't necessarily want to do it anymore. You know, especially on like the, you know, 5th and 6th and 7th listen, you know.
Right. It never felt fatiguing, but I did feel sort of bored with it sometimes.
That's fair.
Like sometimes I could get on its level and just enjoy it for what it was. And then there were other times where I was just kind of like, I'd rather listen to something else at this point.
No, I definitely get that. But the place that I found this album worked the best was actually in the car, you know, and it's been bitterly cold around here. So it's, you know, I've not been able to drive around with the windows down, but it's a great car album.
There are a couple of songs that I think really do paint a picture, which I always like a song that can kind of, without a music video, sort of give you a visual component. And one or two of those do sort of involve cars. And now I did go back and watch the music videos for these songs because, you know, as we talked about with the Linkin Park stuff that we've put out over the past couple months, Emily Armstrong is very charismatic. She's got a really powerful voice. It's a unique voice. And I think she's a good songwriter. I think there's a lot of catchy, clever lyrics on this album. There's a couple parts where I genuinely laughed at the lyrics. Like, I really enjoy her.
Right.
I'm just not in love with some of the songs here.
No, and that's fair. I'm not in love with some of the songs. I'm not in love with the length of these songs. And now, no song here is that long. In fact, it's just the first and last track that actually cracked 4 minutes. But I feel like every one of these songs could have ended a little bit shorter, a little bit quicker. And I'll talk about that when we get to it. I actually put down when I feel like the songs could have ended. And, you know, and we'll get there on those individual tracks. But so I do want to go back to something that you were actually talking about before about how, you know, the talk about the fatigue, you know, towards the back half. What I found is I actually played this one, you know, starting on, I think I started on like track 5, and that fatigue didn't set in. And it felt like a very different kind of record because then it looped around to the first track. And then I found myself just getting tired of those first tracks, whereas I didn't, you know, the first time around. And the first track here is very much a first track song on an album.
I guess so, but the first song, I think, again, one of the reasons I struggled is my two least favorite songs on this album are probably the first song and the last song. Okay. And so for me, that's where it was always like, oh God, this album again. And then after I'm 2 or 3 songs into it, I'm like, oh yeah, this ain't bad. This is kind of fun. Right. And then the last couple songs, I'm like, oh no, blah, blah, blah. So I agree with you that the first song is kind of a first song, but I agree. I think track 3 is where I feel like the album starts to become its own thing, and I really kind of get into it. So I feel like starting the album on 3 and then going through it, I might be a little more into it, but still the idea of having that first song and that last song back to back at any point is like grueling for me.
I will say that when I did that, I kind of found that now I did it more in the background than, where I wasn't so much paying attention to it. And when the song started, the first song started, it was just like this is the beginning of the album. We have come back around. And so the first track feels like a first track and the last track feels like a last track. I feel like those are placed there for the reason that they're there. Because I couldn't find where else they would fit into the track placement, especially listening to it the way that I did. I feel like every other song is kind of interchangeable within this, but they're all. I mean, I like it. I like the what is it, 2 through 10? Like that part, I'm good with. There's a one track in there that I'll talk about it that I would cut for sure. But overall, this one was fun.
Yeah, like I'm with you. Like I think we're both kind of in the same boat. There's a lot that we like, but there's nothing that we love, but there's nothing that we hate.
Right.
It's very kind of just, which is crazy because if you think about what I'm getting ready to say here, this is crazy because if you think about the lyrical content and sort of what we know about Emily and some of their live performances and stuff, it feels weird to say this, but this feels like a very safe rock album. Like it feels like it's, for some of the lyrics and some of the subject matter, it feels like it should be a little bit sleazier or dirtier. And it's very catchy and like upbeat, which I like, but at the same time, it feels weird. Like it just feels a little disjointed or something.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's almost like I wish there was like that sleazy Southern rock guitar, like the Every Time I Die, He Is Legend kind of like snaky feel to it.
There's one or two parts where they flirt with like getting a little bit dirty, but it never lasts. It's always just for like maybe like a couple measures and then it's back to the cleaned up chorus.
It's like they stepped in the mud puddle instead of fell in it.
Which is weird because what I remember from that first album, it was more like that a little bit sleazier. But then again, I don't really want an album that is just a 70s garage rock ripoff. Like I don't want that either. So that's what I mean. Like I don't even know how I feel exactly.
Okay. I need to ask you a question, Monster.
Please.
Are you happy?
I'm not unhappy.
No, but I understand what you're saying. Like you wanted it to be a little bit more sleazy, a little more dirty, but if they went a little more dirty with it, then it would have been that like 70s, I would say bluesy, garage rock. And it's like I almost wanted to get there, and I feel like I wanted to get there so it would be more familiar, but it didn't get there, and I had to be okay with it.
There's one section in particular that it's 2 songs back to back. And I feel like those 2 songs, and I'll tell you when we get to them, that is like the 1-2 punch of the album. And there's songs that flirt with those, but those 2 songs in particular just have a lot more weight to them, I feel, than some of the other songs. And I feel like maybe if they would have leaned into the vibe of those 2, I would have liked this album more. With that being said, I'm very ignorant. I heard the first album maybe one time through the whole way through, and then I've listened to this one for the show. There's a whole lot of stuff in between. So there's a good chance that this might just not be the album for me because there's a lot of stuff I'm hearing that I like, and I'm wondering if maybe some of the other albums get into it better, that like I would enjoy more than I do this one.
Okay, so let's talk about the people on this album. And all right, so on bass, we've got Drew Beck. And then on drums, we've got Sean Friday. And Sean also did the cover of the album. He did programming on this album. And he also produced 3 of the tracks here. Now, one of the tracks. Oh, hang on. Let's finish naming off the people before I go down that rabbit hole. All right. On lead guitar, we've got Susie Medley, excuse me, which I appreciate when a Susie comes along. It's kind of like a Shaky Sue sort of thing. It's SIOUXSIE.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Susie and the Banshees.
Right. And then we've got Emily Armstrong. Now, when I was looking at who produced this album, there was a gentleman here named Mike, and I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong, Elizondo? I don't know. Okay, now, Mr. Mike, I'm going to go with his first name there. So, Mike produced track 4, and then parts of other tracks. It's left open-ended there, I guess. But do you know where Mike's name actually came up before? Because I knew I recognized his name, and I had to go look him up because I wanted to know who the producer was. But we've talked about Mike on the show before. Do you know what album we talked about Mike on?
Oh, no.
So, we know that Emily Armstrong is the new lead singer for Linkin Park.
Yes.
So, Mike produced that album. He produced the songs Heavy as the Crown and Overflow on that album.
Okay.
Yeah. So, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I feel like that's probably more of a relational, connection.
Perhaps.
But it's still fun. And on Linkin Park, he was the producer and songwriter. Here, he's just a producer. He doesn't have any songwriting credits as far as I know. So, fun.
Also, does Emily, does she have a credit for playing guitar?
Yes, she's lead vocals and guitar.
Yeah, because I noticed that, like I said, I watched the music videos for I think they had 3 videos from this album. And I don't remember, one of the videos is kind of funny because there's only 3 people in the music videos.
Right, which I thought was strange when I saw 3 people, but then there's 4 people listed as part of the band on this album.
Yeah, so I'm really not sure, but I get the impression that it's Mr. Friday, Susie, and Emily are the 3 that are in the videos.
Well, I would go Drew because he's on bass, Drew Beck.
Yeah, they usually don't have a bass player. It's usually the girl. They have a girl playing guitar, switching between guitar and bass, and then the guy playing drums.
Okay.
But one of the videos is really funny because it's like in one of their houses or apartments or something, and they're all swapping instruments. So like at one point, Emily's behind the drum set, and then the drummer's the lead singer, and it's real silly. And that's the thing, like that kind of personality and vibe you can't always get from, just listening to the music, which is why I, every once in a while a music video will taint my opinion in the wrong way. But especially for this album, I got a better vibe of who these people are, and I could enjoy the album more that way. Right.
So I don't think I watched an entire music video. I know I watched parts of it because, as we talked about in the past, that when especially with kids, that when you are trying to watch something, they will inevitably interrupt you. But if you're just casually watching something, they're going to leave you alone. So,
and I will say, talking about how I feel about this album, just look at the album cover.
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
that's fair.
That is a weird album cover.
It is a weird album cover, but we have Mr. Sean Friday to thank for that album cover.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Friday.
All right, you ready to jump into it?
Bond villain. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Yeah, he does sound like a Bond villain, Sean Friday. So, all right. Track 1, Starry Eyed. Now, the reason why I say that this is a first track is because of the way the song starts.
Mm-hmm.
Starry-eyed. And after the song starts, to me, it becomes a Flaming Lips song with a female vocalist.
You say Flaming Lips, I said The Killers.
Okay. I feel like The Killers is Flaming Lips light, so,
Either way, it doesn't give me any idea who the hell Dead Sara is.
Right. So, all right, that intro, it's a nice little intro. We do have an auto-tune on her voice, but this whole song, Like, the chorus is good. I like it. But the rest of the song doesn't really give me any feeling for who they are. I feel like this was very much a song of like, oh, we're going to imitate.
Right, exactly. This, and what's bad about this one in particular is it sounds like a copy of a copy. Like, it sounds like they're copying the Killers and the Flaming Lips, who were kind of copying 60s and 70s alt rock and psychedelic rock and stuff. So it's sort of, yeah, like, I get why you put this first, because you do have that long intro. The chorus is catchy enough, but it doesn't, there's not a big hook. It doesn't get stuck in your head. Okay, you were talking about the length of songs. I don't think any of these songs are egregiously long, but this one around 3:45.
It's funny that you say that, because I have 3:44 as the mark for it, and
yeah,
it's like that's where it just needed to stop. Like, it didn't need the pickup for the rest of it. Like, it could have closed out quite nicely there. So,
yeah, because what it does is it goes into this beepy boopy thing that, like, I like the change of the chord progression and the rhythm, because it just sounds a little nicer to my ears. But all the boops and bleeps that just, some of them sound dissonant and out of key, and I don't know. And what's weird is, yes, there is some electronic stuff and synth throughout the album, but not to this degree.
Right.
So this just feels like an odd way to start this album.
Right. I'm going to completely agree with you. So there was a part in the song that I don't really feel like was needed. I don't think it was a bad thing within the song, but it didn't add anything to it. And it's the part where she says "too late" a bunch of times. If they had trimmed that part out and then, like, maybe given us like two too lates, or just one, you know, or maybe, like, you know, give us a little bit of Emily flair in her vocals. I feel like that could have been on just one. I feel like that could have been a lot better there. But overall, this first song, it's obviously the opener for this album. I feel like it was written as an opener for the album. But at the end of it, I kind of went, cool. So we're gonna listen to Flaming Lips for this album.
That's what I was saying. Like, and we'll get there when we get there. But the last song sounds the way it does, and then this is the first song. I always, like, I had to remind myself, it gets better. You do like this. Just give it a minute.
Right. All right, so let's move on to track 2, Good Times.
Depression, kill me. Whatever makes you happy.
Now, this is a song that we start to get an idea of who Dead Sara is. Now, the Dead Sara of this album, because I did go back and I listened to some of the stuff in between, not a full album, but, you know, there definitely is an evolution to Dead Sara. And so it feels more along the lines of what this album is. I feel like this is actually what should be the opener to the actual album itself. I don't feel like track 1 was this album.
You know, you could have even made that, like, long, like that whole first section of Starry Eye kind of like the intro to the album, and then this be like the first actual, like, full length song. Like, just do Starry Eyed for like a minute and 13 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Cut it, and then go into this. But
I feel like that would have been a good move. So, yeah.
But I agree this song is better, but this one sounds like Queens of the Stone Age in the verse and the White Stripes in the chorus. So again, I like it better than the first song, but I'm still not sold on it yet. Okay.
I hear what you're saying, and I feel like this song didn't really get good until 1 minute. And it was like at 1 minute was kind of when things kind of locked in better. And at 1:16, there's this great little walk down on the guitar that I thought was fun. But there's a beat with this song that just that kind of beat in songs gets me pumped up. And
I do like the rhythm for sure.
And what I found with this song is when I was playing this one driving, I actually ended up turning it up and not even realizing I did. And it's just because of that beat. And I was driving faster than I probably should have, but you know, that's what this kind of beat does to me when I'm driving. And you know, so for that reason, I'm cool. I'm cool with this one. But there is at 2:38, there is this like build up and then a drop down with almost all the instruments, and it's just her voice. And I thought that moment was fantastic, and I loved that moment of the whole thing. And even though we lose the rhythm for that, I don't know, what, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, it doesn't change the momentum of the song.
My favorite part is like right after that, it starts at 2:59 where it does that walk down, but it's a little bit like louder in the mix. And it goes into that heavy part where she's kind of screaming a little bit. But that's what I mean. Like, it's so short. Like, I wish that section would have gone on just a little bit longer, because for me, that's like one of those moments that I'm like, yeah, oh, we're done. Okay. Well, that was neat while it lasted. And I will say, I said the Queens of the Stone Age White Stripes thing. I don't love either one of those bands all that much, but I do like the chorus on this one because I love that woohoo in the backgrounds, that like high pitched. That's cool. That gets stuck in my head. I like it.
Yeah, I put down that that woohoo sounds like a updated 90s sound.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which okay, so they're, like we talked about, they're pulling from all these influences, and I'm not a big fan of the like garage rock stuff, but I do love like 90s alternative. So when they lean more into that inspiration, I tend to like those songs better. Right.
All right, so track 3. All I Know Is That You Left Me for Dead.
You are such a lovely home. When you asked if I could take the dirty clothes off for you, I'm so impressed. You're so high.
Quite the song title.
Yeah, very emo song title. But to your point, so this one is one where that guitar, like the lick at the very beginning.
Can we chill on the lies you tell?
My brain went to 90s alternative, and I thought we were going to come into like kind of a mid-tempo groove and almost be sort of like The Flies or something like that. But instead, it decides to go with that more.
Yeah.
Remember them?
I do. I wasn't expecting you to pull out Flies.
Oh, I got some weird references.
Oh, I know you do.
But for what it is, I like the beat. I like the rhythm that it decides to go with. My personal taste would have liked a little bit of that more mid-tempo thing.
Right.
But can we agree that one of the best lines on the whole album is right here when she says, "Get your head out of your asshole"?
Yeah.
You've lost your mind. Get your head out your asshole.
Like, okay, we've heard "get your head out of your ass" a million times, but to go the extra mile, the whole mile, good for her. That made me genuinely laugh the first time I heard it.
Yeah, the first time I heard it, I wasn't paying attention. Like, I just had it playing on my phone. I think I was cooking or something, and I heard that line. I went, what was that? Did I hear that right? I kind of did a double take on it. So, okay. This one, I don't know. I feel like this was kind of like them pumping up a little bit more of their sound, because the drums on this one are just fun. Like, it's just a fun rhythm that goes about throughout this whole thing. And I'm going to say the guitar is good on this track, but the guitar in the chorus is just fantastic. I love the guitar in the chorus.
That little like do 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 do, like that little lead line that it's real simple, but it colors the chorus so well. And I like her voice a lot on this one. In the chorus, she sounds very big, very strong. In the verses, something about kind of, I don't know, but her tone or her pronunciations or something were giving me just a little bit of like Alanis Morissette kind of vibe, which kind of leans back into that 90s thing that I'm into. So there's just something about this one that I don't love it. I like it. There's a lot of stuff that I like. I really don't like the bridge. The bridge, I feel like they could have done something better with it, especially like she kind of goes into this weird like grunting, moaning thing with her vocals that I just... I don't know. Like that part kind of like... unfortunately kind of messed up the rest of the song for me.
Okay, did you get a timestamp on the bridge on this one?
I didn't.
Okay, and this is where we're going to fail our audience, because I actually said that 147 to 158 is my favorite part of the song, and that may be the bridge. I didn't take note of if that was the bridge. Or what? So, you know,
I can tell you, no, that part's cool.
Okay.
I'm talking about the part that starts around 2:20.
Okay, cool. And it's funny you mentioned that part at 2:20, because I wasn't a big fan of that part either. But I didn't feel like it like sucked too much out of it. But I feel like that grunting was a little bit too high in the mix.
Yeah, like the drums are like, there's a cool snare roll, the tempo stays upbeat, but the whole time she's like, it sounds like a Rob Zombie song. Like there's too much moaning and stuff going on, and it's like I'm not exactly sure what they're going for there, but I don't think they're nailing it.
Right. All right. Now, this song is 3 minutes 18 seconds. Not a super long song, and I took note of, you know, that first song. I said it should have ended at 3:44 and it didn't need to pick up for the rest. You know, we agreed on that. But this song, I feel like it should have ended at 2:42 on her scream. Because
that would have been cool.
Yeah, Emily's got a damn good scream, and I feel like that's where it should have kind of gone out there. You know, let her scream be the last thing we hear. But we didn't need to 3:18 on this one. Not that 3:18 is egregiously long, but it's just what happened there just wasn't needed. And
a nice under 3 minute fast rocker with a end with a big scream like that could have been cool, because you do sort of like that section you said you like kind of is a bridge as well,
right? And
that could have been your little like reprieve before going into the like, you know, the ending. But yeah, I agree. This one. Yeah.
Yeah. No. All right. Let's move on to talk about track 4, Hypnotic.
I'm self-conscious. What you think about bedroom kings? Pretty much everything in the kitchen sink. Taking pills on an empty stomach, but it's life making me nauseous.
Where are you on this one?
This was the first song that I was like, I'm in. This is cool. I'm having a good time now. I liked 2 and 3, but then I really liked this one.
Yep. I really enjoyed this song. In fact, this was one that the first, 2 times I heard it, I thought, oh God, really? This sounds like a hip hop track that they're just trying to like squeeze in here. But then it was almost like, I think it was actually on the 3rd listen. I went, "It's a damn good song. I like this one. We're having a good time." You know, and I was sold on this track after that.
And it doesn't sound like 311.
No.
But the chord progression, those 2 main chords going back and forth, is kind of 311-esque. And it does have kind of a funky groove to it that I think is a lot of fun. to your point though, this is a very simple song.
Right.
And so even though when it first starts, I'm having a good time.
With the weird little intro that it has?
Yeah.
Tell me how to start a conversation.
And some of the lyrics are kind of fun, but I'm usually kind of done with it before it's over.
Okay, so before we get to the end, there's a record scratch at 158. But it's not like a hard record scratch. It's like not like, in a movie scene where the wrong people enter the club and, like scratch to an ending. No, it's like, just something else put in there, and it's fun. And then we return to the chorus. And I didn't think that was a bad move because I think the chorus is a lot of fun on this track. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know what else they would have gone back to there. So the end. This one should have ended at 227. Because after 227, and now I don't know if this was what, I assume you listened to this one on Spotify, as I did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you noticed this on yours, but at 227, it's like the song's kind of coming to a close there. And then it's like they recorded the last part of the song somewhere else and just couldn't get the volume right because the song gets louder for some reason.
Be honest, it's all about figuring you out. It's hypnotic. It's
Well, they add a little extra fuzzy guitar and bass in there. I like it. Like I don't mind that sort of they amp it up just a smidge on that last chorus.
I don't know. It got weird loud for me. It was just like, it was one of those things that it was, when it happened, it wasn't enough of a change for me to go, well, that was a fun change that we did there. It was more of a like, why did that happen? I don't understand things anymore. I don't understand this album.
Well, overall, I think this is a fun song.
Yeah.
Every time it starts, I'm always like, oh yeah, this one's kind of fun. And who hasn't stood in front of the mirror naked, destroying all their confidence?
standing in the mirror naked, destroying all my confidence.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
a tale as old as time.
I don't know. What time is it? Yeah, I did it earlier. So no, we've all done it. We've all done it. So, all right, let's move on to talk about track 5, Heroes. So, okay, I do want to talk about how we went from track 3, All I Know Is That You Left Me For Dead, to track 4, Hypnotic, and now track 5, Heroes. They're not sticking with the theme with length of song titles at all.
No.
At all. Yeah. So, okay. I feel like I talked about that woohoo sound, that this is just an updated 90s intro.
This whole song kind of has this sort of like meandering 90s alt rock thing. You know who it kind of reminded me of?
Who?
This is a kind of a weird sounds like, but like middle career Our Lady Peace.
That's
like
fair. Like after Deluxe.
After Superman's Dead, like after that era. Is that Deluxe?
I don't remember what order their albums came. I always liked I always liked Our Lady Peace, but I don't. No, Our Lady Peace or Deluxe was better than Ezra. I'm getting
yeah. Come on,
sorry,
dude.
Sorry. I am admitting my own mistake here. Okay,
I'm trying to remember the name of the album that Superman's Dead was on. It was called Clumsy. Yeah. So right after that one, their album in '99 called Happiness Is Not a Fish That You Can Catch. I really like that album a lot. And this song to me sounds like that era of Our Lady Peace. After they kind of, I don't want to say cleaned it up, but were a little less dark and got a little more poppy. This sounds like that to me. Like it's got a little bit of an edge. That bass line in the verses has just a little bit of an edge, but then big pop chorus, and you've got those whoops, like you were saying,
yeah,
that that's a big Our Lady Peace thing too, that really high pitch falsetto. So
Well, he can hit that note, so why
my
not?
God, Rain Madia, whew, that's an incredible, unique voice. But yeah, like this one I like. This one I think is pretty good. It's definitely a more dour vibe compared to Hypnotic, but
Right.
it doesn't feel out of place being next to it.
Okay, so I love the bass on this track. Like you were saying, it's got a more of an edge to it. I love it. I thought the bass was fantastic here. So I found the places where the song picks up outside of the chorus don't really do much. It's like they kind of just pick up for like, a few seconds and then just kind of go back down. And I kind of thought it was a strange thing when I was paying attention to it, but I didn't hate it. I do enjoy at 119 where the music drops and we get more of just her vocals.
Now, blistering cold sores, scratch my throat, I'm bleeding from
I do like those moments on this album. None of them are ever complete dropouts where the music disappears entirely. So, all right.
But
205.
but then
Sorry,
there's-
go on.
No, what were you going to say? So
I was gonna say-
at 205.
I was going to say 205, where that bridge starts. I do like it. I do like it.
now. All my heroes are dead, all my heroes are dead.
No.
Is that the? Yeah, all my heroes are dead.
No.
Over and over and over. I don't like that.
No, it's actually I have the note here. We get it. Your heroes are gone.
Yeah, like okay, I'm okay. We agree on that then, because like yet again, kind of like Hypnotic. Like I'm having a decent time. I don't think this is a bad song, but then you kind of make this weird choice and go on for a long time doing it. At least it feels like a long time. It's not really, but
No, it's not really, because this song is 3 minutes 16 seconds, so it's not a long song. But the
Right.
song should have ended at 2:59. Now, I don't know if the audience is keeping track, but I've only not said in one track and it should have ended shorter. And now it wouldn't have been, that's not an egregious amount of time to trim off, but it's like that, it wouldn't have given us so much time to know how many of her heroes are dead if they had tightened it up a little
you
bit.
said, we get it.
Yeah.
We get it.
But then also there's that little voice recording that happens at the end.
Wait for the thingy to go around it. Now it's working. This is the, what are we called? The cover-up? Cover-up,
That I didn't really feel like was needed. It didn't really add anything. We've talked about moments of personality, like we talked about it on the Linkin Park album, especially like the whole Screaming Cats part. I didn't feel like that added that to this album. I felt like it was just something that was stuck there because they wanted to remember the memory of what it was.
Yes, I agree, because the couple parts where it does that on this album, it feels very inside jokey.
Right.
It feels very like them talking to each other. Whereas while that's probably still the case in the Linkin Park album, like they're just saying things to each other in the studio, because Emily and Mike are both so charismatic that it just comes across as more fun. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't really need to be there.
No. All right, so let's move on to talk about track 6, Hands Up. Now, you talked about The Weatherman is probably their biggest hit, and I'll agree with you. I think it probably is. But we had talked about doing that first album, and then we settled on doing this album. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this song is the reason why I wanted to do this album instead. I love this song. This song was actually one that I threw on my liked playlist a couple of years ago. I love this one, beginning to end. This is not one that I'm going to say it should have ended at a certain time, because I thought this was fun.
Nope. I'm with you.
Okay.
It's not my favorite. But it's probably it's in the top half of the album for me, for sure. I like the rhythm. Like that it's upbeat. The guitar has a nice tone to it. I even like the little woo at 14 seconds to kind of get the ball rolling on the song. A real good scream at 124.
Oh, yeah.
Where she really kind of belts it.
I love her vocals on this song. I love everything about this song. This song gets me pumped.
And then what's funny though is for me, as much as I like that scream, I think my favorite part of the song is that like 2:16 to 2:30, where I guess it's the bridge, but it doesn't slow down, but it does kind of like pull back a little. But her vocals sound so good right there. They're
Right.
real sweet. And that's not a tone that she often takes, and when she does, it's really good. But then, okay, I do have one complaint.
All right, what's your complaint?
The very end.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing on this album is they just not knowing how to end songs, because I'm not in love with the end on this one, but I don't think it's a bad ending.
So for like 3.5 seconds, you think it's going to rock out, and then it just stops.
Right.
And I wish that either, like, I get trying to just like put a little ending on the end of your song to just like, finalize it. But for me, it shouldn't have been that good, because now I want to hear that. And you're
Right.
not going to give me that,
Okay, and so I'll tell you why I think that ending is there. Because I think that this is a song that was, written as it's good on the album, but it's a really good live song. And I feel like this was like a crowd pleaser, almost like a stadium rock style chorus was written on this one. And I feel like that ending is going to give them a chance live to kind of play it out more and do the hard rock that you're wanting them to do. And so I'm okay with it, because I just like the song. But that's what I felt about this one, is that this is a song that was written to be played live loud and bigger.
Yeah, I like this one. This one's a good one for sure. I just wish they would have grooved and chugged it up there for a couple minutes, a couple measures more at the very end. But for what it is, it's still a good rock song for sure.
I know you love a good chug. All right, let's talk about track 7, Lovers Stay Wild.
I'm in for it. We know love is so complicated, but much easier when naked.
My first note on this song is, oh, fun, the Space Boy guitar. Because I feel like that's a guitar like tone that we've heard on so many songs with Space Boy in the title or something like that. Like, it's like that Angie Aparo riff, guitar from the song I picked out before. I can't remember what album that was on, because there was a song on that album that sounded like that had that same.
Yeah,
guitar.
we were talking about Space Boy by Splendor.
Right.
If I never return to the ground.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it, but it was like, oh, this is where that is here. Okay, cool. So, all right, outside of that, go on.
So it's funny you should say Space, because this is the song in particular when I said kind of paints a visual picture for me. Like when she's singing that "Lovers Stay Wild," like that line.
So lovers stay wild.
I just see her like on the side of a highway with like a broken down cutlass beside her. Like she's probably got a big straw hat, looks like Stevie Nicks or something, like spinning in the middle of the road singing. It has this very like hot highway feel to it to me, which again, so I like that I'm getting a vibe from it, but I don't necessarily love the song. I actually think my favorite part is the there's a cool little guitar solo that starts around 2:28. It's fairly simple, but it's right. It's very lyrical and it fits the vibe of the song really well. And then I don't think it should have continued on. I don't think it should have like overstayed its welcome, but those last couple chord strums, I really like that too. That guitar sounds so sweet to me. And I don't know that there was be a spot where you could put that in somewhere else, but I do like, for as infuriating as the end of Hands Up is, I genuinely love the way this one ends.
Okay, so the ending of this, I said it should have ended at 320. So just trim a little bit off there. And I think it would have cut out those strums you're talking about. But
that's exactly what it would have done, you monster.
Yeah. Yeah, you're the monster here. Your name is Monster. Shut up.
Yeah, but with comments like that, that's atrocious.
Okay, so you're talking about painting a picture. And there's a couple songs on this that also do that for me. And what I said about this song is, I don't hate the song. I don't love this song. This is a very passable song. But I guess this is a slowdown of the album. Even though we do get a nice little scream before the solo,
Yeah.
It's nice, but it's not like an aggressive scream. It's a necessary scream. Because what would you do if you were stuck in a WB show? Because I feel like this is actually like an updated WB gazebo song.
So you think this is Dawson Creek Core, like 2021 Dawson Creek Core?
I called it WB Core because this is after Dawson's Creek has got off the air, like what the WB is leaning towards now. Is the WB still around? I don't even know.
I doubt it. Probably not.
No, it's the CW now. CW.
The CW. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think, no, that's right, because WB and UPN merged into the CW.
That's right. That's right. So my UPN comment was actually on point.
It was not wrong. So WB Core is what I put here, because this just feels like a modern gazebo song. Like
kind of does.
It's like up until that scream into the solo, I feel like it's that. It would feel very appropriate being played in the background of one of those scenes. All right, track 8, Gimme Gimme.
So rapid, play stupid games and stupid prizes. Let's just say this never happened. Oh yeah, I can take you over, picking pill, popping chemical lover. Oh yeah.
I couldn't not say that title, So Gimme Gimme. All right, go on.
So this for me is the part 1 of the 1-2 punch of this album. Because this song to me is, I don't know if you would say it's the most aggressive song, but it has the most like grit to it. Mm-hmm. Like part of like the way she's delivering the vocals, it's sort of almost rapped, but it feels like she's just kind of like spitting it out at you. And it has this volatility that was missing from most of the album. And that's why this song really stood out to me every time it got to it, especially coming out of such a like whimsical, like you said, WB style song, to come into this with that, like right out the gate.
Oh yeah.
I really like this song.
All right. I really like this one too. I thought the guitar, I thought the riffs were fantastic on this one. Mm-hmm. But it's not an exact sounds like, as none of our sounds likes are exact. Well, very rarely are they exact, but this one felt like a Local H song to me, around like the copacetic.
Get it, you keep it copacetic, and you learn to accept it. You're so pathetic.
Time period of Local H. That's what every time I got to this one, it felt like a Local H type song. And it's not a criticism at all, because I like Local H, so fine. Yeah. I don't know where the local, where they're local to in that H, but it's there anyway.
Please stop, please. I'm begging you.
I will never. Okay, so I do like the way she says "cut me down" at 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, don't try to cut me down, try to cut me down.
No, that's the one part I don't like.
Oh, well, it's not uncommon.
Cut me down, try and cut me down.
It's not uncommon for us to dislike and like or disagree on a certain part of music. So, all right.
It's true.
So, I really feel like this was, again, a Local 8 song up until 212, because then 212 to what should have been the ending at 245, I feel like was just a banger section.
Oh yeah, I can see you underneath the stars just begging for heaven. Oh yeah, and this is when you say good.
And it's like it got out of that local H territory, and it's like they went a little bit further away from the H, and they weren't so local anymore. Like I told you, I'll never stop.
What's the opposite of local? Foreign H?
Yeah, foreign.
I think that's just. I think foreign H is just heroin from other countries.
Yeah, I think you're right, but
yeah, but this, like I said, because that section you have kind of stripped down just the guitar and her vocal, and again, like she's just got this attitude on this song that is. I kind of thought was her whole thing until I listened to this album and was like, oh, okay. I guess she just kind of uses it sparingly. And on this one, she uses it full blast. And I like it.
No, I thought she gave a good one here. But, the thing about track 8 is fun riffs. Feels like a local H song. I like the Cut Me Down. Like, I don't have a lot of notes on it just because it was just a good song.
It's the closest thing to what she's doing now in Linkin Park.
Right. Which actually, that's something I did want to say at some point is I would not have listened to this album and thought this would be a great replacement for Chester.
No, me neither.
But I mean, she's obviously holding her own and that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
but it's almost like she has an entirely different persona within this album that works here. So, all right, let's talk about track 9. Back up a little bit. Track 9, Lights Out.
But I said it. Anyway, it's a close call, borderline. I talk too much when I'm nervous. I'm talking a mile a minute. So maybe try a little harder when you
So
It's got an
let me
exclamation
tell you.
point, so.
Yeah, no, you nailed it.
Yeah, thanks.
Let me read my first sentence of my notes.
Okay.
Well, I love the shit out of this.
Oh, yeah. No, I really like that intro. It's like from the moment it started, I was in.
That guitar. So I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big fan of the throwback bands, except for a few. And the Hives are one of them. And for me, that opening riff is so the Hives. But then they God, there's so much cool stuff going on in this song. So I like the intro and I like the way her vocals are.
The distortion that's put on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then there's also this other doo-doo, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo, guitar line that goes on top of the verse chords that I think is just so gnarly and so earwormy. This, like I said, between Gimme Gimme and Lights Out, bam, bam, back to back. This feels like what I wanted this whole album to sound like.
Okay, so the background speaking parts on this track. They were fun in headphones, but in regular speakers, I kind of just felt like they were unnecessary, but it was really good in a car. And that was, track 9 is where I was like, this is a car album. I've really enjoyed this in the car the whole way. But, I talked before about how my drive to work is not that long. It's just a 15, 20-minute drive. And so I caught the back half of this album on drives. And so, Lights Out came on at the end of my day, and it was one of those things where it was like, this wasn't the greatest day, but this is a damn good song, and I'm having fun here. But
yeah, this
go on.
Oh, but what's the but?
But talking about songs painting a picture, this track, it sounds like this should be a song in a car commercial.
More flattering, I would say, like the getaway scene in a car movie.
Okay,
but you're not wrong. There's a car.
Right, there's a car. Or a car drove a bunch of girls to a really nice clothing store, maybe on Rodeo Drive, and they're just taking bats and messing the store up.
this does sound like a Riot Girl kind of punk rock thing too, for sure. I hear that.
Yeah, no,
Like
I like this one. I'm good with it.
Like you could put this on like a girl power rock, playlist right next to like Cherry Bomb and, I Love Rock and Roll and stuff like that.
But then, the Lights Out will come on. Everybody's going to go, what is this song? We don't know this one. And I'm going to be like, this is Lights Out by Dead Sara. It's good.
You should know this one.
You're going to like this song all the way up until the ending, because that ending is terrible.
What's wrong with the ending? What happens at the ending? What am I forgetting?
I didn't write down what happens, but I just wrote down I don't like that ending.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it does this little right, like this little walk down thingy. Yeah. Look,
it's passable because the rest of the song is a good song.
If you're going to do that shit at the end of Hands Up and make me really angry and leave me upset, then you know what? Fine. Do your little doohickey at the end of Lights Out, and I don't care. Moving on.
All right. So let's move on to track 10, Uninspired. This song, like the title of this song, is what I feel when I talk to you. I'm just uninspired.
Yeah, well, feelings mutual, pal.
I actually have the note, take a dig at Monster.
It just shows how intelligent you are that you had to write that down.
No, I didn't want to forget. So, all right. I think that Emily probably sounds the best on this track than most other places in this album, like consistently on this track. Because in other tracks, she sounds good in certain places. On the one before this, she had that distortion on her vocals, which I thought was a great thing to put there. But this is where I felt like we consistently had more of the pure Emily vocals. And this is very different than the vocals that we get in Linkin Park now. But I think that she did a great job here. I think this is probably her shining moment, her stand-up moment in the album. And this actually kind of goes back to what I want to talk about before, or what I was talking about in the beginning, which is when I listened to this all the way through, I was getting tired, but here they're throwing, track 9 and track 10 at us, and they're just different enough to make it okay, where I'm still there. I'm still in. So
I like this one. Her vocal performance is solid. I didn't quite connect with it as deeply as you did. I think it's a good performance, but I do like the lyrics. They feel very genuine. I feel like she really was probably really upset when she wrote this song.
Right.
And I love those lines that are very blunt, like, I've got to write a hit song or I'm going to lose my unemployment check. I've got to write a hit song or my unemployment's gone. Like, right. There's nothing flowery about that. There's nothing poetic. It is matter of fact. And partially because of the music, partially because of like the lyric delivery and stuff, it reminded me a little bit of like Everclear, So Much for the Afterglow era, where, songs like Father of Mine.
Father of mine, tell me what do you see when you look back at your wasted life and you don't see me.
And I Will Buy You a New Life.
I will buy you that big house way up in the West Hills.
Like those kind of blunt lyrics, that kind of rhythm. I was kind of getting that vibe. And I love that album. So this is a good song. Like I enjoy this song quite a bit as well.
This is a good one, but this is another one where it's like I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It was just enough that it was there. But I do like the song more as it goes along. Okay, so I do like the synth in the background. It does have these small little runs through the verses.
That's specifically, there's a run from 147 to 153 where there's this little synth run that I think is chef's kiss. Very cool.
And it's like as the song progressed, it's like the synth runs became more noticeable. And I think that's why I ended up liking it more, because it was just this extra thing, this extra layer in the background. Whereas I feel like we've gotten mostly a rock album up to this point, and I feel like this is where we kind of started taking a turn here at track 10 out of 11 track album, where we started kind of throwing in some new sounds, and I appreciated that. Was there synth earlier in the album? I'm sure, but it wasn't as noticeable as it was here on this track. And I appreciated that here, throwing something new at us.
Well, there is a lot of synth throughout for sure, you know, and the difference is in those parts, I'm not feeling it nearly as much as I'm feeling it on this one. Yeah. Like I'm thinking about like Starry Eyed and Hypnotic, and like
there was on Hypnotic. Okay.
The synth lines in those songs are fine, but they're not as catchy as it is in Uninspired.
Okay, so I guess the reason why the synth lines didn't really stick out to me on those other songs is because, okay, Hypnotic, for example.
Because you don't like those songs as much, so they don't stick with you.
Actually, I did enjoy Hypnotic, but I think because Hypnotic, it was more of like, it was filling in the extra spaces. And
yeah,
it's not that it wasn't noticeable, but it wasn't noticeable, I guess. I don't know how to put that in
so not to jump back to Hypnotic, but one thing I forgot to mention was that in the second verse they do add like this little horn piece that kind of layers it a little bit more. Yep. But what's nice about Uninspired, though, to your point, is I think it actually has 3 verses instead of just 2, but every time it's a very gradual build. And that's what you're noticing with those synths, especially in that 147 section where the synth flourish is really big in the mix because it's been slowly getting there the whole time.
Right. Okay, so the guitar does a fun thing at 246. I really like the way the guitar is also building throughout this, and then it's like the guitar got more experimental towards the end of the song, and I was good with it. Now, this is another should have ended early. So this track is 3 minutes 23 seconds, not that long, but they should have ended at 3:10, cut 13 seconds off of it, and I would have been good with it. But I feel like that last 13 seconds just wasn't needed. I feel like it was like they were uninspired making the song, and that was just kind of them trying to find where the ending was going to be.
The ending doesn't bother me on this one, but
no, it didn't bother me, but I didn't feel like it was needed.
It does feel like it goes on a little bit too long. Like every time that third verse started, I was always like, oh yeah, there's still another verse and chorus progression to go through. Like this song is not almost over, and it's not a long song, like you said, but I like this one. I think it's good. It's got more 90s alt rock influence than anything else, which I think is why I like it, but not one of my favorites.
And that concludes a good album.
You could have stopped right there, and that would have been all right.
I actually feel like even with track 1, track 10 would have been a good ending song, a good closing track. But instead, we go to track 11, Losing My Mind. And here, I felt like I was losing my damn mind because I was not expecting like a 2000s trip hop song to start up.
So let me just read from my notes. I said, given the vibe of these songs, some kind of rock and roll, some kind of 90s alt, some other stuff, I was real curious to see how they'd end the album. With a weird, digitally altered, glitchy, dubby pop song was not one of my guesses.
No, that was not on my bingo card for this album.
No.
And okay, so you know there's like the like cotton cylinders that you get put in your mouth at the dentist? That's what I feel like Emily's singing with in her mouth. Like she sounds like she has a mouthful of cotton and can't really enunciate, and she sounds muffled. And I mean, I guess this was a nice change for the closer of this album, but I don't feel like this one was needed. This is the track I would absolutely cut off of this album. I don't feel like this track added anything
if anybody listens to Dead Sara and says, "What's your favorite part of this band?" and you say the guitar riffs, okay, maybe. I love the drummer, okay, maybe. But I feel like the consensus is Emily. Emily is the star of this band. She is charismatic, strong voice, interesting lyrics. And what do you do on this last song? You make her sound unrecognizable.
Yep.
The lyrics, and I can't even really tell you a lot of the lyrics off the top of my head because I'm so bored that I'm not engaged, and I don't know. Like, I'm not, for all of the connection we made on Uninspired, I feel like I don't even know the person singing Losing My Mind. Like, it feels like a completely different entity at this point.
So, I can't recall a lot of the lyrics, but I did put down the note. I get it. She's losing her mind. And so I can't even really recall too much of what the songs really sounds like, except I do distinctly remember the trip hop sound and that her vocals were just not the same here.
Now, the one thing that I don't want to say I like about it, but the one thing that I did that kind of kept me at least somewhat engaged, like when I was taking notes, is that it becomes less digital as the song progresses.
Right.
So like the very end, like the last maybe 30 seconds or so, it is a lot more her voice, live instruments. And so it's almost like it is a gradual build, but it doesn't feel like the same band. Like this doesn't feel like Dead Sara with the tracks that preceded it.
No, this feels like the Emily Armstrong side project. And I mean, that's cool, but I can tell you what you're talking about. Okay, so I did put the note down that the song definitely changes tone at 3:05, where there was an acoustic guitar that I was not expecting to be put in there.
Yes.
And it was almost like after that, it became more live instrument than digital.
I'm losing my mind.
And that was fine, but it should have ended at 3:40. But like I said before, tracks 1 and 11 are the only tracks on this album that actually crack 4 minutes, and this was 4 minutes, 12 seconds. I didn't think the rest of it was awful. I didn't think it was needed. I didn't think this whole track was needed, basically. This one hurt the album to me.
Yeah, because you almost so we made that joke about Starry Eyed. You could have just played like the first minute or so and made it kind of like an intro. Makes you wonder if maybe you couldn't have just did the same thing here. Take a minute to 2 minutes of just the trippy weirdness. Don't build it up. Don't flesh it out to 4 minutes. Just have it as an outro. Even maybe have it fade out or something. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Let me pose a question. Would you rather have this shortened up and just made into like a 2-minute outro, or, and this is going back to the early 2000s, hidden track?
For me, the way Uninspired progresses, like we said, like it steadily adds stuff to it to make it bigger and bigger. I would have been okay with maybe even making that song longer and making it kind of like this quote unquote epic album closer. And then, having something like this as a hidden track or something like that. Like, I would be cool with that, because Uninspired feels like Dead Sara. This feels like, I don't know. This feels like somebody else telling them they should do a song like this.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, Monster, let me ask you a question. What's new with you?
Hey, good looking. What you got? Cooking.
Gimme, gimme.
Making pill popping chemical lover. Oh yeah. This is when you tell me that the good.
That one, it has this, like I said, she's not really rapping, but she's kind of got this like snippy attitude to her vocals, and the music has like more bounce and groove than it does anywhere else on the album. It's not my favorite song. Lights Out is my favorite song, but Gimme Gimme is definitely the newest of the bunch.
Yeah.
So Danger, what's cooking?
So at first I put Hands Up because I've actually played Hands Up several times while cooking, but I actually changed it before we started recording to Hypnotic. Because tonight when I was cooking dinner, I actually found myself kind of bobbing to Hypnotic and kind of really enjoying the groove of the song, and it just really seemed to fit better than Hands Up. Hands Up just is more of a get pumped, like, you know, we're having a good time. Hypnotic is more of like a, we're here, we're doing this thing, and we're going to have a damn good time while we're doing it. I don't know. So, yeah, Hypnotic is my track. All right, do you want to go ahead and give us your closing statement?
Yeah, sure. Feel like I said most of this throughout the episode, but you know.
Yeah, it's fine. I feel like that's what we're starting to do more.
Yeah, I guess that sort of is. What is this, episode 706? And I'm just figuring this out.
No, it's episode 77. So you were right with the 7 part. But
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, it's like, I guess we should change this to, do you want to give us your summary?
Well, but it is at the end of the episode, so it still is a closing statement. You know what? Shut up.
Do you want to give us your closing summary?
Do you want to read your Word document?
Do you want to read it? Go.
All right. So I've never been a huge fan of those modern bands that have that throwback rock and roll sound, minus a few exceptions. I feel like when I listen to those kind of bands, I hear all of the influences and very rarely hear the actual band I'm currently listening to. And for the first 2 or 3 songs or so on Ain't It Tragic by Dead Sara, that's kind of what was happening to me. However, once I got past the first few songs, I found myself starting to settle in and enjoying it a lot more. I felt like by the middle of the album, I was finally hearing Dead Sara and not just Dead Sara doing their best impressions of other bands. However, that starts to fade by the last couple songs. There is a nice chunk in the middle I was kind of vibing with. The bookends often made it hard for me to want to keep listening to the album over and over. Overall, I did have a good amount of fun with this album, and if you like those throwback style bands, you could do a lot worse and a lot more derivative than Dead Sara. 1 to 10, I said 5.89. And Danger, how about you give us your final summary statement closing argument?
Hey, now that just made me mad. The way that you just
good. That was
okay.
the plan.
Yeah. So every once in a while, an album comes along that feels like a place and a time. If Dead Sara was aiming to make an album that sounds like Los Angeles in 2010, they succeeded. They brought us 11 tracks of snare and riffs. If this album was a wardrobe, it would have flared jeans right next to ripped ones and a bunch of band tees and flannel. I think the biggest flaw of this album is that it has a need to be longer. Nothing here is painful, but trim 20 seconds off each track and I'm all in. This is the best Dead Sara album that they ever put out. Their evolution was a good one, and it's worth the ride. If Linkin Park had not come calling, maybe we would see what the next step would have been. For the most part, Ain't It Tragic stays true to their style and shows growth as a band, but it's just not going to be for everyone, and it needs to find that right audience. I gave this a 6.89.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, Monster gave Dead Sara Ain't It Tragic a 5.89, and I gave it a 6.89, which gives it an average of 6.39 and puts it in the 39th position, just below Chiodos and just above Stabbing Westward.
Ooh, no, see, that's like oil and water right there. That's not going to work.
No, it's not. It's not. If you disagree with the score that we have given this album, then please shoot us an email at breakdownsbreakfast@gmail.com or head on over to one of our social media platforms, X, Instagram, Facebook. Check out the Facebook page for Breakdowns for Breakfast. and let us know what you'd like for us to talk about in the future, what album you would suggest. And speaking of the future, Monster, what album are we talking about next week?
As a matter of fact, next week we have another fan request from our boy Jason over at the Ready Set Radio podcast. We will be discussing
J-Dub. They call him J-Dub over there.
Oh, sorry. Monster, Danger, J-Dub. Like, God, what is with these people and their fake names? Should I just start over or should I just keep going?
What are you talking about? My mother actually named me Danger.
Danger's my middle name.
Sorry, J-Dub. We are actually going to be pushing your request out a little bit, but we have done several of your requests already. And we did Ready Set Radio's request of the Lost Highway soundtrack, and we cannot pass up the opportunity to talk about a 311 album on 311 Day, which is going to be next week with the biggest 311 fan that I know. So we will be talking about 311's album from 1997, Transistor. So please check out next week's episode on that album.
Piece of advice for everybody listening. You got to make sure you get a good night's sleep, because if not, the next day, your energy will be toast.